You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. Well, a disappointing day for LSU recruiting last week when five-star wide receiver Dakorien Moore decommitted, but that's something, quite honestly, Shea Dixon told us to be on the lookout for, 2 or 3 weeks ago when he was here. Shea Dixon is here now. On3 the Bengal Tiger. He's on Twitter at Shea Dixon. How are you, Shea?
I'm doing well. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing really well. I would ask your reaction, but clearly you weren't surprised at the Dakorien Moore decommitment, as you had told us that several weeks ago. But just to the best of your understanding, Shea, how did all of that play out?
I think when you look at it, he was considered a guy who was a heavy Texas lean early on. Family from Austin. They were, are all fans of Texas. And even throw any NIL discussions aside, which certainly come into play with a kid this good. Look, he's a 5-star receiver, number 1 in the country. And make no bones about it, he is elite. And LSU will keep recruiting him, because he has been committed before and he's just that good of a football player. But it was just a surprise that he picked LSU over Texas. And he did it right after the whole Hayden Durham, Colin Simmons announcement. They were all Duncanville teammates. LSU split those guys. A few days later, they pick up Moore. And I thought he would hold on for a bit and then explore options, but this spring, he ends up going to Ohio State a couple of times, Texas. He named a top 4 while already being committed. So the writing was kind of on the wall that, hey, look, he's looking around. He's probably going to open it up. And I think in the eyes of LSU, better to happen right now than on the eve of signing day or later in the process.
So they'll continue recruiting more, as well they should. He didn't have LSU on a list of finalists, so I don't know what the probability there is, but you're right, there's a long way to go. They've only got one receiver right now committed, and that's Teron Francis. Where does LSU look next for receivers in this class?
I think they just keep going with where they were already in the process. I mean, they have Louisiana, which always produces great receivers. We know that. 2 of them just went in the first round. Number 1 rated prospect in the state at receivers coming out of Edna Carr, Teron Francis. He's already committed. So you had Moore and Francis. Now you have Francis. And they had been recruiting a number of other out-of-state guys that already set up official visits. Khalik Lockett is probably one people will talk about the most because, A, he's coming out of Texas. So that makes him sort of a guy that they can battle regionally for and feel like you got a really good shot at it. And he's a 5-star. On the On3 industry rankings as the number 2 receiver behind Dakorien Moore. And then C.J. Wiley, Chuck Wiley's son, is one of the top 6 receivers in the country coming out of Georgia. He's already made a bunch of visits to LSU. He's got an official visit set up. They'll have to beat out Kirby and company to pry him out of Georgia, but at least you do have a legacy there that you're recruiting and who, again, is ranked as the number 6 receiver in the country. And another who's visited a ton, who's been ranked as a 5-star, Jamie French, who, coming out of Florida, was committed to Bama when Saban retired. He decommitted, and he's sort of named a number of different teams as kind of his lead groups, but LSU's been a constant, and he's made multiple visits. Now we'll have an official visit coming up. Tossing Derek Meadows, a guy out at Bishop Gorman, who also has an official visit set up for mid-June. He's ranked inside the top 10 on the industry rankings. So they had already, Cortez Hankton had already been recruiting this wave of guys, even with Moore and Francis committed. Now I think the focus kind of really turns to them for LSU fans who are saying kind of what's next.
Shea, what about as they move through this portal cycle, right? And I know Brian Kelly has given several interviews. He gave one to Scott Rabley, the Advocate, and said they're done at defensive tackle, but could be looking at other positions. Any ideas, best guess, what they might be targeting right now in the portal for the 24 season?
I read the interview as well, and I thought that was telling that he said, hey, look, with a few scholarships left, where Suggs would be the final addition at DT. And Matt, there's nobody else out there who fits what they're looking for in terms of, hey, if you're not going to come in and be in the rotation this year, then there's not a point signing you because we can either fill in another position or just hold the scholarship. And if they're entertaining filling other positions, I just go back to the last time, like you said, Brian Kelly's doing these wave of interviews. The last time we all spoke to him together, the position he circled outside tackle was punter, and they don't know what they have there. And I think he said in the spring game, he said he was upset with it. I don't know if he made it like about the whole spring, but the reality is Peyton Todd has been in the program a number of years, and we haven't gotten the chance to see him yet. Did they bring anyone in? I don't know if it's a scholarship or not. You can always kind of navigate those waters with specialists, but I wouldn't be shocked if they looked at a position like that. And look, I know people want more corners and all that. There's just not guys out there that, in the mind of the staff, at least from speaking with sources, that at this point trump just developing what you have in Stamps and a new guy like P.J. Woodland and others who, if you bring a guy in, is he that much better than them, or do you just go ahead and buy into what you have? And I think they'll kind of roll with that.
He's on Twitter at Shea Dixon, on3 the Bengal Tiger. What about at the defensive line position, Shea, defensive tackle in the high school ranks? Like, we know what they have coming in, right, in this summer, but what about for 2025?
Yeah, we had an article on the site today about one Lone Star State defensive tackle coming out of Geyer, where Ryan Yates played, who transferred out this past offseason, but played a good bit as a true freshman last year. But Xavier Akpanu, who was a guy Bo Davis recruited heavily at Texas as a guy coming out of Denton. LSU is considered the team to beat at this point over Texas, and now he's come out and said, hey, look, they're the front runners as I get into my visits. And I think this will become a theme, and I've talked about it before, this cycle, where you sit back and you say, okay, how does LSU build up on the D-line under Bo Davis? Well, for the future, it's not going to look like what it look, right now. They've had so much turnover year over year, and it's a lot like what we saw Jamar Cain when he came from Oklahoma. When you come from Texas and you're recruiting D-linemen, you're recruiting the same guys you would be at LSU. So he's kind of picked up where he left off, right, when he was in Austin, and a lot of these guys are either Texas commits or they are Texas's top targets because that was his board. So I think we'll start to see some of those dominoes drop here in the coming months. They don't have a D lineman committed yet, but I think guys like this are guys you watch for in terms of Texas guys or Texas commits, Brandon Brown being one of them out of Florida, a D tackle who visited for the spring game. I think the theme of the cycle is Bo Davis, picking up on Texas commits and trying to get them to become LSU commits.
Shea, I know summer is always big, right, with the elite camps and everything that come up in June. What is that schedule like here? It kind of sounds like the staff's getting some downtime right now, and they're going to ramp up for camps in June. What's that schedule like?
Yeah, everyone works, I think it's under a 17, 20-something day window where you have all your camps in that stretch. So LSU will kick it off on, I think, Sunday, June 2nd. They might have a youth camp right before that, but that's when they'll have the 7-on-7 tournament, O-line, D-line camp. They always have kicking camps mixed in, so they'll get guys in for that. But the elite camp, I think the first one is going to be June 6th, and then about a week later, they'll have that second big elite camp. Then they'll do the Friday Night Lights. That's where they kind of finish things, which will be June 21st, and that's when they had Bryce Underwood and Harlan Berry and all those guys in a year ago, and now, 10 months later, those guys are committed and the number one quarterback and running back in the country. So, another O-line, D-line camp thrown in there, Matt, and it is one of the more important stretches, 21-day, month stretches of the recruiting calendar, because it's their only chance where the NCAA allows them to get hands-on and work kids out that ultimately you offer and commit or don't.
Yeah, Shea actually did just pull it up on the LSU Twitter that youth camp is on Thursday, May the 30th, and then Sunday, June 2nd is when that 7-on-7 O-line, D-line camp gets everything started. Man, it's almost here, man. What a busy summer it'll be. Hey, before you go, I'd love it if you get a thought on the Jaden Rashada thing. I think everybody saw Rashada suing Billy Napier and some boosters at Florida. They had, allegedly promised him $13.5 million in an NIL deal. They reneged, and now he's suing them. So, got any thought on that?
Are we surprised that it ended this, or is that we've come to this, given that it wasn't, a year ago? Probably a little over a year ago when he was the first guy we publicly found out with signed, documents of what an NIL deal looked like, and it was this $14 million deal, and it looked exactly like a coach's contract would, like stay this long, get this much, do this, get this much. So for that to all have gone down and resulted in that and then blow up, I'm not shocked at all that this is coming through. I'd be curious to see now how it all goes, because, boy, I would think any head coach sits here and pauses now about saying, okay, let's see what we're getting ourselves into with every guy. Not that they're not doing that already, and certainly probably early on saw stuff like this unfolding and said, hey, let's be careful with how we approach things. But this will be, I'd have to imagine, right, like the NIL storyline. And there'll be other big ones down the line, especially as NIL sticks around. But this is the one to remember early. I will say, did you read like the original article and the Kirby quote?
I must have missed a Kirby quote. No, I mean, I read the big like expose at ESPN.com today, but I didn't see a Kirby quote.
Oh, I wish I would have had it pulled up. It said something, and I don't think it was fake, but it was something along the lines of Rashada had mentioned it to other coaches, including Kirby Smart, who gave him his blessing to move forward with the decision.
Oh, with that lawsuit,
to back out of it. Yeah.
Oh God. I bet he is. I bet he does give the blessing to shed a lot of negative light and shine a lot of negative light on the Florida Gators. What a time. You're right. It's going to set a ton of legal precedent, however it plays out. He's on Twitter at Shea Dixon on3, the Bengal Tiger. We always appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yep, sounds good. We'll talk next week, Matt.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.